Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Kuf Yud Zayin and Baba comments. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Nesunim Basar V'Shivya throughout the world and in this part of the world. Says the Gemara, we're at the fifth line of the wide lines on Kuf Yud Zayin and Baba. Rafuna Bar Yehuda, a story. Rafuna Bar Ikla Bei Avyone. He went to that town called Bei Avyone. That was the name of the town. Also came for Rava. Amalei Rava. So Rava said to him, have any questions come up? Have you dealt with any serious issues recently? Any halachas, any judgments came before Yomi? There was a story with a Jew who was compelled by the Goyim. The Goyim came to him and said, show us where the Jews have some money. And he showed him somebody else's money. This case came before me. And I held him liable to pay because he was the one who exposed the property of somebody else. Amarle, Ahadaruvda, reverse your ruling, Lemore, give it back to the owner. In other words, the one that you held was liable, give him back money. The time Yisrael Shansuach Gechavim. If a Jew was forced by Goyim, the Hera Mammon Chavero to fork over, to show where somebody else kept their money, Potter, he's exempt. If he did it, so to speak, by hand, that is, he picked up the money, brought them the money to the Goyim, then Chayiv, then he's liable. Amarabba, Imhera Atzmo, if he showed it to them by himself without being forced, he saw the Goyim coming and he said, hey, you want to find where the Jews' money is? I showed it, and then that's as if he did it, literally picked up the money by himself and gave it to him, if he did it on his own. So in our Mishnah, in the end of the Mishnah, we saw yesterday, it said, our Mishnah holds the opinion that if you steal money, that the land is not really, cannot be stolen. Land cannot be stolen. That's what the Mishnah said. So if you steal somebody else's field, and then Goyim took it away from you together with other fields, he could just say, look, take your field back. It's not, I can't do anything about it. However, and if they didn't take anybody else's field, they only took his field, right? Then he had something to do with it. Then he would have to, then he can't just say, but then the end of the Mishnah said, that means if the Gazlan himself said to, he didn't really steal it, he just showed the field to other people. He says, hey, you want to get a good piece of Jewish land? Here's a piece of land. Then he's chayiv to pay. So here too, if the Goyim forced him to reveal where the Jews' assets were, then he's not responsible unless he did it on his own. He showed it to him on his own, or he had a hand in it. Now we have a story which is a little bit more complicated. Goyim forced the Rav Meir, and the Goyim forced him to reveal where Jewish wine was kept, where their cellar was. Whose wine was it? Rav Meir Bered Rav Pinchas Bered Rav Chesta. Rav Meir, who was the grandson of Rav Chesta. Amarle, they told him, Dori v'amte badan, help us lift the bottle, the casks of wine. He showed him where it was. They forced him. And then they said to him, help us carry it. V'amtu badan. Dori v'amtu badan. So Dori v'amtu badan, he lifted it up and he carried with him. Also came to Rav Ashi Patrinu. Rav Ashi exempted him from paying because he was forced. They showed him, he was compelled to show where the Jewish wine was. If he carried it out with his own hand, he helped them physically, then he's liable. That's if the Goyim didn't know where it was, they wouldn't stand there originally. But over here, the Goyim were standing there, Mikkel Kolis has already been gone. In other words, this idea that when are you liable? If either you showed it on your own or you actually brought it to them on your own, that's good. But if you were compelled and you were compelled to show them where it was, and then the Goyim said to you, once they knew where it was, they said, okay, help us lift it out, then you're no more responsible than if you didn't take anything. It's already been consumed, it's already been burnt, so to speak, it's gone. Rashi, Amalo Anas, if a bandit said, Hoshitli Pekia Amir, hand me over. That's important. Hoshitli, pass me over this bundle of wheat, or this bundle of grape, or this cluster of grapes. V'hoshitlo, and he handed it over. Chayiv, you're chayiv to pay. So what do you see over here? You're chayiv to pay. Why? Because even though the guy knew where it was, he said, hand it over to me. But since you physically handed it over to him, you're chayiv, even though the guy is right there. Since you actually physically did something. In other words, it's very clear that if a guy compelled you to say where something was, and they forced you at gunpoint, you showed them where it was, you're absolved. You're exempt. On the other hand, if you just on your own went and wanted to curry favor with the guy and said, "Hey, I know where some Jewish money is or Jewish wine is," then you're certainly liable. The question is, if when they forced you to reveal it, you actually helped them along. So he said, if they forced you, and once they forced you and they knew where it was, they were standing there and they told you to help them, that's not you're not any more responsible because they already had it. You were just acting as a sabal, as a schlepper. You're not responsible there. But here it's mashma when they said, "Pass me over the bundle of wheat or the cluster of grapes," and he gave it to Mishchayev, even though they apparently knew where it was. That's different because over there they were on two different sides of the river. The goyim could see it, but they couldn't access it. They couldn't reach it. And then you did it. You handed it over to them. You threw it over to them like it handed over. You threw it to them. They couldn't reach it on their own. Then you had an active part in the gzela, and you're responsible. Dekanami, you see this also proof diktani hoshit. It said, pass it over to me. Below Tani 10 didn't say give it to me. It said pass over to me. It's mashma. They were far away. Shmamina, you see that. There was a net, like a trap, that was trapped for fish that two people were fighting over. See, we're getting a taste of Shnai Mochsen, of Bab Metzia, which we're going to start a mitzvah on Friday. We're getting a taste of it already, huh? Giving a little advance story here, right? Each guy said it's mine. This guy said, then that's mine. This guy said, that's mine. One of them went. He gave it to the king's office over there, to the king's officer. Amr Abaya, Yachal Omar. You could say, Ani, he must be Didid. I gave my own. What do you want from me? I gave it over to the king, like maybe as a prepayment against my taxes or something, I could say I gave mine own. Amr Rava, Chochmin is believed. There's a fight here. Neither one has more proof than the other. El Amr Rava. We excommunicate him till he brings the net back, and stands up to judgment. We have to judge him. In other words, that's the rule. If two people are fighting, you got to come to court. You can't grab it on your own and give it to the king as your give it to the IRS as your prepayment and claim that it's yours. Hogaver, another story. However, a Jewish man was going to show the goyim where the grain, the teven of somebody else was. He says, I'm going to show him where it was. Rav said, don't do that. You're not allowed to. Again, we're not talking about at a time when it's fair, when taxes are equal to everybody, except for the rich who have all these exemptions. But it's basically a fair system. It's a certain percentage. In those days, the goyim took what they wanted. So, things weren't fair. So you weren't supposed to show somebody else's assets to the government. So this guy said, I'm going to show him where it is. Rav told him, don't do it. Amalei, machmina, I'm going to show him anyway. Despite you, I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I want. Yasser Rav Kana Kamei Rav. Rav Kana, who was this was in Bavel, this story. Rav, as you know, was both in Bavel and in Eretz Yisrael. He went back and forth, not like Abai and Rav and Shmuel and many of the other rabbis in Bavel, and not like Rabbi Yochanan, who was in Eretz Yisrael. But this took place in Bavel. So we'll see. Yosef Rav Kana was sitting in front of Rav, and he saw this story that this man had arrogance and contempt for the rabbi. Rav told him, don't reveal where it was, and he said, I'm going to do it anyway. Shamte l'koy, he dislodged his neck. Rav Kana went physically and broke his neck and killed him. Kari Rav Eluya, so Rav called out this pasuk, quoted this pasuk about the story. Banecha olfu, your sons have fainted. Shachvu barosh chol susos, they are lying at the head of all the streets. Kiso michmar, like a wild animal in a net, in a trap. Masos, they're just like this animal. Kivin shenafel melech, once he falls into the trap, a merachulav, the hunter, the trapper has no mercy on him. He's fallen to his trap. That's it. The animal's done. Af mamon jeshal Yisrael, the Jewish money, kivin shenafel, once it falls in the hands of the goyim, a merachulav, he's not going to get it back. They don't give you a refund so quickly. So, so he quoted this pasuk that look what this guy has done. Amalei Rav. It seems like Rav Kahana, but you have to see the story from the context. You see that Amalei Rav. So Rav then said to Kahana, Kahana had killed the man, Jewish man. And until now, he says, Kahana, come here. Until now, we were ruled here in Babel by the Persians. They don't care about murder. You know, say so killed another Jew, they don't care. But now that we have the Greeks who are more enforcing of the law, the they're makbid, they're particular about murder. And since you murdered somebody, they'll say Mardin. They're going to call you a murderer, because you're a murderer. So you better kum saklara to Israel. Go up to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, escape, right? Escape to Eretz Yisrael, like people have done in our times when they came here to escape justice in the United States or someplace else, right? He says, go up to Israel. But now you are a great Talmud Chacham. However, I'm warning you, accept the point of Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan was the Marad Asra. He was the chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. He was a great Talmud Chacham. But Rav Kahana, Rav knew that Rav Kahana was even a greater Talmud Chacham. And don't bother Rav Yochanan with your questions. Don't bother him, because you're going to stir up trouble. Accept upon yourself that you won't ask Rav Yochanan any questions, Shevashan, for 7 years. For 7 years, keep your mouth shut. Azul, he went up there, so Ashkel Rish Lakish, he found Rish Lakish, who was like the leader was a Talmud of Rav Yochanan, and the Yosef, a Kamasayim, Masifta the Yoma, the Rabbanim. He was reviewing what we call second Seder. You review the Shiur that you learned earlier in the day. First Seder, you make a laning of the Gemara, then you hear the Shiur, then second Seder, you review. So Rish Lakish was reviewing the Shiur that Rav Yochanan had given that day. He was reviewing it for the rabbis, the Chazara. Amar lahu. So he said that's what this Rav Kahana came to the yeshiva, and that's what was going on at the time. Rish Lakish was reviewing the Shiur. Amar lahu. He said to the students there in the yeshiva, Rish Lakish, where's Rish Lakish? Amalei, Amai, why do you want to know? Amalu, hi Kushi, I have this and this question and this question. Vai Piruk, and I have these and these answers. In other words, Rav Kahana was a tremendous Talmud Chacham, and he was able to ask and answer all kinds of questions. So Amalei Rish Lakish, they told Rish Lakish about this, that Rav Kahana had come here and he asked these difficult questions and gave these difficult answers. Also Rish Lakish went and told Amalei Rabbi Yochanan. We all know the story of Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan's brother-in-law, that Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish was a highwayman, and Rabbi Yochanan convinced him to do tshuva. And he said, if you do tshuva, you can marry my sister. And then they became colleagues, and they learned together and argued with one another. Also, Rish Lakish, Amalei told Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi told Rabbi Yochanan as follows: Ari Olam Bavel, a lion has ascended from Bavel. You better be careful with tomorrow's Shiur. You know, when you know that smart people like yourselves come to the Shiur, you are more inclined to prepare. You know, so you better be careful. The next day, Asvua B'dar Kama, they sat him in the first row. There were 7 rows of Talmidim in front of Rav Yochanan when he gave the Shiur. They sat him in the first row because he was a respected man. Look, he came from Bavel. He was a great Talmud Chacham. They knew that. But they didn't know that Rav Kahana had been warned by Rav not to say anything for 7 years. Keep your mouth shut. Amar Shmaita, V'lo Rabbi Yochanan started to give the teaching, the learning, right, the drasha, and he didn't ask any questions, or Rav Kahana just sat there. Another Shmaita, he said another teaching, V'lo and again didn't ask him something. So they kept moving him back. In other words, the smart guys sit in the front to ask the questions. You're not asking any questions. So they moved his seat further back. They sat him all the way back to the 7th row. Until they moved him back 7 rows until he was sitting in the 7th and last row. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish, Rabbi Shimon Lakish said to Rish Lakish, Arisha Marti, he said he's a lion. Nasa Shul, he's like a fox. He's much, not a lion so much. He's like a fox. He's not as learned as apparently you made him out to be, because I gave the Shiur. He didn't ask any questions. Omar, when Rav Kahana heard that, or I don't know if he heard it, but he felt that he had been diminished by pushing him back to the 7th row. Yeah, Rava, let it be the will of God. The Hani Shevadori, these 7 rows that I've been pushed to the back, This should replace the 7 years, right? I took it upon myself. He didn't say took a shvua, but I took it upon myself not saying for 7 years. Now I've been moved back 7 rows. How about those 7 rows replace the 7 years? Maybe now I can open my mouth. The Amrli Rav, I will replace those 7 years that Rav told me to keep my mouth shut. Kamakar, he got up on his feet. Amrle, he said to Rabbi Yochanan, standing in the back. He stood in the back. He was in the 7th row, and I mean they must have had ushers, etc. And he got up and he said, Rabbi, can you repeat the shiur? Can you go back to the beginning? I want to point out something that I'm a Resha. Amar Shmaitis, Rabbi Yochanan repeated the first teaching, and Rav Kana asked a strong question. Ukmi b'dar kama, they moved him all the way up to the 1st row, right? Amar Shmaitis said another teaching. Rabbi Yochanan said another teaching, and he asked him another question. And Rabbi Yochanan now had to diminish himself because he didn't have an answer for Rav Kana's questions. How did he diminish himself? Rav Kana was already in the 1st row. Rabbi Yochanan Yosef Hashiva Bastarki, he was sitting on 7 cushions. Notice he's sitting high up on 7 cushions when he gave this year. Shafalecha Bastarka. One, when Rav Kana asked him this second question, the first question caused Rav Kana to move from the last row to the 1st row. The second question caused Rabbi Yochanan to remove one of his cushions. Me too, say from underneath him. Omer Shmaitze said another tashkini, but actually Rav Kana asked him another question there, and this went on until all the cushions were removed, and Rabbi Yochanan was sitting on the floor. Until all the cushions had been removed from underneath him, until he was sitting on the ground. Rabbi Yochanan was an elderly man, and he had very long eyebrows that covered up his eyes. He couldn't see very well. He said to them, he was sitting now on the ground, Doluli Einai, lift up my eyes, meaning lift up the eyebrows for Achse, and I'd like to see him. I mean, you can learn more when you see somebody directly than you just hear him. Dolule Einai Achse, and so I can see him. Dolule B'machalta de Kaspa, they had a silver hairbrush, a little silver hairbrush that they used to lift up his eyebrows. He saw when Rav Yochanan gazed upon Rav Kana, he saw that his lips were parted. In other words, he had a cut there. He had some sort of a wound, and his lips were cut open. Rabbi Yochanan thought that Rav Kana was laughing at him, that Rav Kana had asked him questions he couldn't answer. So he said Rav Kana was making fun of him. You see, what do you know? Came from Bavel, I know more. He thought that, but it's not really true. Rav Kana wasn't laughing at him simply because his lips were cut in such a way that it appeared that he was smiling, laughing at him. Rabbi Yochanan became very upset, right? Became very upset by this, and therefore Rav Kana died because of the shame that Rabbi Yochanan felt from Rav Kana. Rav Kana died suddenly. L'mocher, and he was buried. L'mocher, Amalu Rabbi Yochanan. Next day, Rabbi Yochanan said to them, to the Rabbanan, to the rabbis of the yeshiva, did you see how that Babylonian treated me? He was making fun of me. Amrle, no. That's his. He wasn't laughing at you. It was just his lips were cut. That's how he looks normally. All Lagabe. So Rabbi Yochanan realized that he had made a terrible mistake by being offended. All Lagabe, he went to the cave where they had buried Rav Kana, because he buried people right away. He came up to Eretz Yisrael, as we see, because of fear. Pardon?
Because he murdered somebody.
Because he murdered somebody. He came up there because he murdered somebody. Okay, maybe the person deserved it because he was making fun of the rabbis, right? But he murdered somebody. Came to Eretz Yisrael. He was still zocha to burial in Eretz Yisrael, right? Like they all want to do. All the Gavim Ross came up to the cave where Rav Kana was buried. Chaza dehave hadra le'achna. There was a snake, a serpent, who was encircled around the mouth of the cave. And Rashi explains that he fully encircled, made a full circle. There was no opening, meaning the animal had taken its own tail and stuck it into his mouth, so that the circle was complete. Couldn't get in. Snake, open your mouth. Let the rabbi come in to see his Talmud. He didn't open up. The snake was not opened up. Some say, it's an allegory for the Yetzer Hara or whatever, but Hashem made this happen. Yeah. Okay, I'm not the rabbi and he's not the student. Let's say he's my colleague. Let the colleague enter another colleague, a friend to a friend. Below puzzle. The snake did not open up. Let the student enter and see the Rav. In other words, Rav Kana, he gave him the respect. Now showing Rav Kana was the rabbi, I'm the student. Now the snake released his tail from his mouth and opened up a little bit, so he was able to open up the cave and he went in. Boy Rachme, he begged for mercy. Rabbi Yochanan prayed for mercy. V'ukme, and he was able to cause him to get up, to rise from the dead. Amalei, had I known that was your normal look, to me you looked like you were laughing at me. But if I had known you normally, I wouldn't have been upset and it wouldn't have caused you to die. Hashta leisi marbadan, please come back with me and learn with us. Amalei, if you can guarantee me, so to speak, if you can pray that I won't die again, that you're not going to happen again, you're not going to get me, I'll go. If not, I'm not going to go. All the cholav shaita, cholav. There's different ways to understand this in Rashi. In other words, he says, since a nace happened, like people say, ain't somchan al nace. I got one nace. You revived me from the dead one time. I don't know that I'll get another chance with that. So if you get, it's like if you get right, like the story before when he at the feast, right? He says, if you there was who Rav over there, Baim Rav, I think it was right by Rav. So so Rashi in his first interpretation says, maybe you're gonna get. I don't know if I'll get another chance. It was a nace, right? But I'd rather go home. Just let me live and I'll go home. I'm not going to stay and learn with you because I'm afraid I'll die. Some say, I don't want to die again. In other words, not because I'm afraid you won't be able to make a nisa again, but I'm afraid the dying was painful. Like, is the shaila, is dying painful, or is it just like the prick of a needle, doesn't feel like anything? So I don't want to take any chances. Tyre, so I guess later Rashi brings down in Gemara that he actually did go home, but apparently went to the yeshiva too, because it says Tyre, he awakened him, Ukme, he restored him, and Shaila called Sveika. And Shaila asked him questions, he asked him all his questions, Shaila asked him questions, called Sveika to Havile, any question that Rabbi Yochanan Pashtinu, he decided the question for him, his poshet, the Shaila, anything. Pashtinu, and he explained every question that Rabbi Yochanan had. Rav Kana was able to answer him. This fits in with this that Rabbi Yochanan famously said, Dilchun Amri Dilhonin. What I said to you, my students in Eretz Yisrael, that you were the Torah of Bnei Yisrael, were the main, the highest level was that you rabbis in Eretz Yisrael. Dilhonin, it really belongs to them in Babel. The Babylonians were considered to be greater Talmidei Chachamim than those in Eretz Yisrael, based on this story with Rav Kana. So that's the story with Rav Kana. All started because, how do we get to the story? Because Rav Kana had killed a person who refused to refrain from revealing somebody else's property. There was a man who wanted to reveal the silk ornaments of Rav Abba. He wanted to reveal what they were. These three rabbis were sitting and judging the case. Rav was sitting in front of them. They wanted to say that he's responsible to pay. Why? From a famous. Now, this man, all he did, he didn't physically do anything. All he said was he told the goyim where the silk ornaments of Rav Abba were. So he said, listen, words alone can make you liable. Why do they want to Meharatan? We have a case in Sanhedrin, Donos Adin. If a judge judged the case, and he made a mistake, he gave merit to the one who had to pay liable, and the one who was innocent, he made him pay. Right? Or Timei Sator, something was Torah, he was Matame, Bethir Satame, or was Tame Torah. Masha also was done as Ambi Yishalmi Beso. In other words, what's done is that you can't get the money back, but the judge has to pay out of his own pocket, even though all he did was say words. So you see over here too, all you did was say words, you have to pay. That's only if the judge actually took the item physically, took the money from one, gave it to another, or he picked up the item and pronounced it. Amrile Zil, they told him, so in that case you can't tell, because that's only speaking about when you physically did something. You want a case where all you did was you showed the guys where the merchandise was, where the assets were. Amrile Zil Gabe, Reb Shimba and Yochim, Reb Lozav, and let's go to those two rabbis. The Dainei Din of the Gami, they judge cases of indirect damage. Azul Gabayu, they went to him, and they made him liable from our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah says, we said in our Mishnah is talking about where the Gazlan took it. He says the machmas Gazlan, but he wasn't really Gazlan. He just pointed out where it was. And the Mishnah said, he's got to give another one, Bukimna, he just showed him where it was. So even though he didn't really steal it, and as we'll see, according to our Mishnah, doesn't even hold karka cannot be stolen, but if he just pointed out where it was, that's good enough. So here we did it on his own. So we've explained, if a goyim forced you to reveal where somebody's property was, then you had no choice, even if afterwards you helped them along. But if you did it on your own, or you physically just helped them along without being prodded to do so, then you're responsible. Another story, there was a man who had been given to guard, to hold in his house, a silver cup. Salika Gantela, the Ganavim came and threatened him. They came upon him and looked and to try to steal from him. Shakla, he took the silver cup Yavalu and gave it to them. So now the case came before Rabba Patre. Rabba exempted him from paying for the silver cup that he gave up. This is a case you're not allowed to save yourself with somebody else's money. You saved yourself with somebody else's money, you're responsible to pay. So here too, he saved himself by using somebody else's money. So he should be liable to pay. Elam Ravashi, Chazin, we check in. If he was a wealthy person himself, also they came for him. And then if he saved his own assets by giving up somebody else's assets, he's responsible to pay. Elo, but if he's not a wealthy person, they came for the cup. If the Goyim knew that he had been holding the cup for, Shimon had been holding the cup for Reuven, and they came to Shimon's house, where's the cup? It's not his fault. He wasn't saving himself. They came for the cup. But if they came for him and said, where are your diamonds? We know you're wealthy. And he said, here, take the silver cup. Then he's responsible to pay. That's called Matzel Atzmo, Chabera, which is illegal, which you're responsible to pay for. That's Matzel Atzmo, Chabera. And that's okay, another case. Somebody they had collected money for Pidyon Shvuyim, and he was holding that money for Pidyon Shvuyim, for redeeming the captives, for ransoming the captives. So Ganavim came to his house. Shakla, he took the money, the pouch of money. I think it was a money like with like that little purple bag that you have, you keep the stuck of money in there, Canadian club, whatever, I think it looked like that. He had this Pidyon Shvuyim money in there, all kinds of money, and he gave him that money. Yavnil, he gave it to him. Asal Kamei, the Rabba, he came for Rabba Patre. Rabba exempted him from paying. You're saving yourself with somebody else's money. You use the Pidyon Shvuyim. Rabba answered, that's good. That's also Pidyon Shvuyim. They could have hurt him. They could have killed him, right? So that's also Pidyon Shvuyim. Even if the Pidyon Shvuyim sometimes is only for money. Today, gets to the big question that they have today, but Brydowitz was talking about this, that, why, what's the story with Pidyon Shvuyim? Are you mechuyev to get these things, this whole debate going on, where, we could have just bombed all those people, and different opinions, Ravad Yosef and Yosef on one side, and Yaakov Kamenetsky on the other side, have said that even the captives are like soldiers, and you can't take their lives into consideration when you're fighting a war. You have to fight a war. This whole business about Pidyon Shvuyim, what's responsible for and what not. But even so, you can't always learn from the prior cases of hundreds of years ago when they would take rabbis captive in order to get money. In those days, their lives weren't at stake. Today, we know that the lives of the captives are at stake, and therefore, Ravad Yosef, and he claims that Rabbi Yosef agreed with him, that right now you have a case of Pidyon Shvuyim, you have to redeem the captives. You say, look what happened with Sinwar and all the other ones later on. You let out all these terrorists. Right now, these people's lives are at stake, right? That's a vadai. It's a suffix what's going to happen in the future. In the future, you can't deal with it. You got to deal with right now, and their lives are at stake, and therefore, so there's different opinions about this. And this is also Pidyon Shvuyim. And here, even if it was only for money, it's also called Pidyon Shvuyim. That's also called Pidyon Shvuyim. So the rule is Einachanami, like the Maram Rottenberg, who refused to be ransomed because that would just encourage more and more and more. But his life wasn't at stake. He eventually died in captivity. And it took him another 10 or 15 years until somebody ransomed his body to be buried. And the guy was buried next to him, a wealthy Jew. But pidyon shvuim could be whether it's for money or for their lives. Their lives are at stake. Hahu gaver, the first of the white lines of Gemara. Hahu gaver da'aktim ba'asik chamer lemever. Listen to this. There was a ferry. You could just picture this. There was a ferry. Today you have ferries with cars and everything goes on there. But in the old days, the ferries weren't as strong as they were. It was made for people. This guy brought his donkey onto the ferry. Right? Now, he went before the other people went on. He went and brought his donkey onto the before the people ascended the. Some say the portion that before they were able to get off, but he brought his donkey onto the ferry. What was going to happen? The donkey is wild. The donkey is not like a llama. A llama they could put in the helicopters. They have these trained llamas like the army has. They're very docile. They're very easy to deal with. You put a donkey's going to start kicking and everything, and the boat was going to turn over. It was going to sink. Also, government came Malach lechamri, pushed the donkey. Now Gavra, Vishadi pushed him to the river. You see in today's Gemara we have chamra wine and chamra donkey. Hence where the word chamra. Where is the chamra? If it's in the cellar, then it's wine. If it's out in the field, then the road, it's a donkey. Right? So they pushed him into the river, the tava, and the donkey drowned. Right? Donkeys can't swim. So Gavra also came Rabbah. They came before Rabbah, and they said, "Look, this man." Look, when Mechayim you killed the donkey. This is patre. He says, no, he's exempt. He saved himself with by using somebody else's money, right? By somebody else's asset. He saved himself from drowning, for the whole boat turning over, by using somebody else's asset, the donkey, by killing the donkey. No. The person the owner of the donkey, right? He was the one who was demanding payment for the donkey. He's a rodef because he was trying to kill everybody on the boat. By bringing your donkey onto the boat, you were endangering the lives of everybody else. And what's the halach of a rodef? You're allowed to kill a rodef. If you see somebody going after somebody else to kill them or to rape a girl, you're allowed to kill him, right? If a rodef was following somebody to kill him, if the rodef himself on his way to kill, he broke somebody else's vessels. Anybody else's potter. It's like on Shabbos. We learned yesterday. You throw a knife on Shabbos across the street, you're chayav for Shabbos, and if you tore somebody's garment in between, you're potter. Here also, the rodef himself, since he's chayav misa for rodef because his life is worthless, you're allowed to kill the rodef. You're allowed to kill him. His life is considered it's a capital crime, so he doesn't have to pay. So that's as far as the rodef. The nirdaf. What about the person who's being pursued? He's running away, and while he's running away, he breaks somebody else's kalim. If it's the rodef's kalim, he's potter. Why? I'm allowed to kill the rodef. If somebody's running after me to kill me, I'm allowed to kill him. So certainly I could break his tear his suit and break his car and do everything else. If the nirdaf running away breaks somebody else's items on his way to save himself, he's chayav to pay the asr lahasal atzmo b'mam mechaber, like we've learned several times here on this stop. You cannot save yourself with somebody else's money. If you do, you shouldn't, but if you have to, then you pay for it. But rodef, show you rodef acha rodef. What about a person running after the rodef to kill him? Not the nirdaf and not the rodef himself, but somebody else was running after somebody. I saw somebody running after somebody to kill him, so I go and get them. That's Shava Kalim, and I broke Kalim on my way. In other words, what do you call that? A good Samaritan, right? He's trying to say, Bain, Shonir to Bain Shakon, whether he destroyed anybody's Kalim, whether it was the person being pursued or anybody else's, you're potter, but you don't have to pay. Below Menadin, not because technically, if the Nirdaf himself is not allowed to use somebody to hurt or damage somebody else's assets to save himself, certainly a fremda, a non-party here, a good Samaritan is not allowed to use somebody else's assets to save the nirdaf, but we allow it anyway, even though that's not technically halacha. If you don't say that, nobody's going to save somebody else. Why would if you hold a good Samaritan responsible, a good Samaritan, let's say, take somebody else's car or somebody else's assets to kill the murderer that was out to murder somebody. Say, well, the Good Samaritan has to pay now for any damage. If you don't say that, if you would say that, nobody's going to be a Good Samaritan, and that's not law.
Is the rodef here the owner or the mule?
The rodef is the owner of the mule. The owner of the mule, by bringing him on there, he's responsible, of course.
So you throw him overboard?
Well, in this case, you have to look at it.
So
You have to, it's really both of them. Once you take once he doesn't have it anymore, right? You're allowed to, to kill him. You could say that the donkey is the rodef over here, because that's really the issue. The issue is the donkey. The owner wants to be paid for his donkey. But you could say that the donkey is chayiv, miso, just like you say in general. But obviously, first of all, yeah.
The captain of the ship isn't the rotor for allowing.
No, he didn't. He wasn't. Let's say he didn't. There was no captain or whatever. He didn't allow it or whatever happened. He's not rotor, or it was done without his. Obviously, wouldn't have agreed to it. He was about to lose the ship. It was against his will as well. So the mission was talking about where you stole somebody's field, and then somebody took it. And afterwards these ruffians, these bandits took it from you. If they're taking from everybody, you could just say, well, nothing I could do about it. Here, the Mishnah goes on to say, Shatpanar, let's say a river, after you took somebody else's field, the river flooded the field. You say, again, it's not my, take your field back. Can't steal a field. If you steal somebody else's field, Shatpanar, and then it was flooded, Rabbi Lezer holds not like our sheet, not like the previous Mishnah. He holds that a field can be stolen, and you have to give him another field. You stole it; it's in your possession now. He holds that karka can be stolen, as we'll see in a minute. He holds karka can be stolen. Therefore, if it was flooded, you got to give him another field. You stole a field; you got to give him back a good field. You can say the field can't be stolen; it's karka. What's the machlokas? It's a question. We have ribu and meat. We also have klal prado klal. So the question is, where do you apply it? Rabbi Lezer usually darshans ribu and meat more often. And therefore, and even though darshans call patu in certain cases, but Rabbi Lezer darshans ribu miyat when there's a choice of the two, and Rabbanan say no. It was a ribu in the case where you swore falsely. But the idea is not only when you swear falsely, whenever you deny something, you have a kichesh mamiso ribu, anything that you deny, but pikadon, and it goes on to say pikadon or shlichas yad or other things or gezel. Pikadon is a miyat. That's less. That's one is an enlargement, like you're including everything, right? A ribui, and one is a miyat where you're limiting it. And then it says mikol asher yishba lav l'sheker, or anything that you swear falsely about. Chazav riba miyat for riba, when you an inclusion and then a miyat, a limitation, and then a bigger inclusion. Riba you include everything except for, and you only exclude one thing. My ribi akol mili, everything is included. Meaning even you could steal karka also. And avodim and everything. What do you mean at one thing? You mean at shtaris. Why? Because a shtar, not only because it has really no intrinsic value, therefore, that's the only thing that's not included in the rules about stealing. And therefore, you could here we're supposed to talk about denying it and swearing falsely, but the idea is that it applies to everything that's stealing. You can even steal karka. Rabbanan dashi klal prat. They dash in the same pasuk or klal prat, a generalization. And then a generalization followed by a specification. So the kichesh klal, that's a general thing. That's a generalization. The pikadon is a prat. That's a specification. Omikol asher yishba love. Anything else? Chazor klal. So we have a klal paro klal. You have to get a prat. It's got to be like the prat. Not that it's limited to the prat itself, which according to Rav Lezer is only stars. It's like the prat. Ma prat over metalta, just like prat is over metal is movable, and has intrinsic value. Af called over metalto, anything which is movable, but go for money has go for money. Yatsu karkar, so we exclude karka. Why? Because it's not movable. Shem metalto. We also have avadam karkars, and we exclude avadam, which are juxtaposed with karka. They're like karka. Yatsu starish. It's just metalto, and even though they're movables, ain't go for money. They don't have intrinsic value. So that's machlokas. Can you steal karka? Not I bought a tanya. I goes also para. If you steal a cow, the shatpanar, and you steal a cow, the cow is on a piece of land, and the river flooded and killed the cow. You got to give another part. You can say, here's your cow. I didn't do anything. Machlokas over there. The par, after all, is immovable and has intrinsic value. So why did the Chachamim say, Rav Lezer says, right, that you can make him pay? right? You have to pay. And the Chum say you're potter. How's that? The parah is movable and it could be stolen. What's the problem? Why aren't you responsible? What's my papa? She goes, what happened was you stole a field by Sapara Vutsabo, and there was a cow lying on the field. When you steal a field, when you acquire karka, you acquire metaltalin together with it. Whether if Kavana could even be from metaltalin, it's not there, but certainly if it's on the field. Gazlan Mashcha, the Gazlan did not take the para, but a kakos. Well, Rabbi Lezer Damasad in Excelsior field, para kanima, b'chayv l'sham, metaltalin nikna magav karka, metaltalin can be acquired together with karka. Rabbanan lo kana sada, v'lo kana v'lo para shabbat. Rabbanan say you can't steal the karka, and you didn't make a kinyan on the para. So therefore, you don't have to pay. Therefore, you didn't get anything. You didn't actually steal the cow. You stole the karka. Karka can't be stolen. So if the Rabbanan say you're put on the karka, you're put on the cow. According to Rabbi Lezer, you're chayav for the cow. Why? Because when you stole the karka, the para was on there. Therefore, you acquired the para too. But now, Rabbi Lezer tamei, Rabbanan tamai. Rabbi Lezer says you can steal karka. If you can steal karka, you can steal the para that's on it. The Rabbanan say can't steal karka, and you didn't make a kinyan on the para. Says the Mishnah, goes as chavero. If you Reuven stole from Shimon, Oshil Vaimena, or Reuven borrowed some money from Shimon. Reuven owes money to Shimon, Oshifgalo, or Shimon gave him some money, B'Yishuv, he deposited some money with him in town. You shouldn't give it back to him in the desert. In town, it's okay, but you met him in the desert somewhere where there's bandits and it's not safe. You can't just return it to him there. You can't say, "Oh, I'm giving it back to you now." Wait now. I don't have my satchel with me. I don't have my guard with me. You can't give it to me there. Remember, they say if he gave it to him on the condition that he's going out to the desert, then Yachlo Bidmar. The Gemara's going to ask, isn't that obvious? If there was a condition that you're going to go out to the midbar, what's the problem? For a minute, first Gemara says, Milva Mishtamas Komakum. You can pay back a loan any place. Aveda Makad and Emshamel Makoman. And Aveda, because you got to give only where they took place, where it was found, where it was given. But a loan can be paid back any place. How can you say that if you gave him a loan in town, you can't be paid in a dangerous place? A milva can be demanded any place. If I lent you money, you can't say, "Oh, you lent it to me in town. I'm in the desert now." That doesn't help. Since I lent you money, right? The malva has the upper hand. He can demand the money wherever he is. If I give you a deposit, I can't demand it wherever I am. I gave it to you in town. I can demand it back in town. Also a lost item that way. So it doesn't mean that this means you can't be demanded in town. But in terms of we're looking from the Malva's point of view, if he lent him money in town and he doesn't want to be paid out in the midbar where he might get stolen from him, then he's entitled to say, pay me back in town. But if he wants to, he can demand it wherever he wants if it's a loan. The condition is going to pshita. If he made the condition that I'm going to borrow the money on the condition I'm going out to the desert and I'll pay you back there. It's obvious. If he made that was a condition. What's the problem? Let's read it. I'm giving you this thing to deposit the annal midbar. I'll tell you, can you hold this item for me? I'm giving you this deposit because I'm traveling out on the midbar, traveling on the rough roads. And the nifka, the one who was given the deposit, said, annal midbar, I'm also going to be there. I'm also going there. I'm also going. If I want to give it back to you, I can give it back to you. So he didn't say, I'm giving it to you, or I'm accepting it on the condition that I'm going to give it back to you. He just said, I'm also going to be there. So if you want, I might pay you back over there. A man says, Reuben says to Shimon, I stole something from you. You probably don't remember I stole it from you. Or I borrowed some money from you. If God you gave me something. In other words, this man comes nicely and says, you know what? I have some of your money. I stole it. You lent it to me. You gave it to me to watch. I don't remember if I gave it back to you. It happens sometimes. I know you gave me something or I took something. I'm not sure if I returned it to you or not. Chayev l'shalim. He's got to pay. If he says, I'm not even sure if I stole it from you. If I borrowed from God, that's late. Now, obviously, we're not talking about where the guy has an IOU. The Malva has an IOU says, hey, you owe me money, and the other guy has no proof. So that's proof. You'd have to pay him back. Or if he mixes him, make a shvua daraisa. If he denied the whole thing, and the other guy has a claim, he could say you have to make a shvua hesses rabbanan. But if he just says, I don't even know, I'm not sure if I did or not, then he doesn't have to pay. Nobody's demanding it from him. Itmar. That's what the Mishnah says. Then a man says, I think I took something from you. I'm not sure if I have paid you or not. I have to pay. He has to pay it back. Now the Gemara is going to explain this is under a certain condition. He doesn't really have to pay. Itmar. famous case we have throughout Shas. Manali biyadcha. Reuben says to Shimon, you owe me money. You have $100 of my money. The other guy says, I don't know. I don't know. So in Machlokas Rav Huna of Yehuda, we don't pass like says you have to pay. Why? Bari b'shem bari Rav Nachman Yochanan no pot, you don't have to pay. I'm not sure. You just say you don't have an IOU. You just say I owe you money, and I'm not sure. Rav Huna of Yehuda Machaya bari b'shem bari Rav. He's sure. I'm sure you owe me money. You're not sure. You owe me. You got to pay me. You leave the money in the possession of the holder. Right now, I have the money. I'm not sure if I owe you the money or not. You have no proof, and therefore I keep the money. And we talk about like Rav Nachman Rav Yochanan, I don't have to pay you because I'm not sure if I owe you the money, and you have no proof. So now, what about our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is Potter. If I don't know if I borrowed money from you or if I stole, if I'm not sure, Potter. If he's not demanding anything from him. So Reishanam Blokatavle in the first case also, in the first case of the Mishnah, he says, I stole something from you, I took something from you, I'm not sure if I paid you back. And also the other guy's not demanding anything. Why do you have to pay? Why do you have to pay? I'm not sure. I think I might have borrowed something from you. I borrowed something from you. I'm not sure if I paid you back or not. The other guy's not demanding anything. The person who allegedly the money was taken from is not demanding anything. Why do you have to pay him? Ella the Katabla must be that he's demanding it from him, and still B'tani safe a potter. In the Reisha, where he says, "Yeah, I'm not sure." The Reisha apparently he says, "You owe me money," and the guy says, "I'm not sure." You got to pay. You got to pay, right? And he says, "You got to pay." In the Seifa, where he says, "I'm not sure if I took from you or not." I'm not sure if I took from you. In the Reisha, he says, "You took my money," and the guy says, "Yeah, I took your money, but I'm not sure if I paid you back or not. You have to pay." In the Seifa, I took your money. You have my money. And the other guy says, I don't know, you're potter. So Ella the Katabale, the Tani Sefer Potter Malasham, this is a proof to Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Nachman. Says, look, La'olam lo Katabale, he's not demanding anything from him. So if you're not demanding anything, why in the Reisha do you say you have to pay? I come to you, you're not asking me for anything. I just say I took money from you, I stole from you, I borrowed from you, I'm not sure if I paid. Why do I have to pay? Reisha Batzlas Ishamayim. I want to be Yosim Ishamayim. Really, I don't have to pay, and I did. But I'm not sure. I might have taken money from you. I know I took money from you. I'm not sure if I paid you back. So I want to be Yotzei Shemayim so that there should be no claim against me ever, even in Shemayim. This case brought down in the Gemara where he said it was demanded in the Mishnah. You can't tell if it was demanded or not. So we say it wasn't demanded. But if he demanded money from me, I don't have to pay. You only chayiv to pay, and this is where you chayiv to pay if he wants to be Yotzei Min B'dei Shemayim. But technically, halachically, you don't have to pay back if I say you owe me money and the other guy says I'm not sure. Technically, the halacha is like Rav Nachman Rav Yochanan that you're potter from paying. Only if I want to be Yotzei Shemayim, then you would have to pay. And Rav Nachman, Rav Huna Rav Yehuda say you have to pay anyway because Bari B'Shem Bar Yodaf, and certainly when one guy is sure. All right, we'll pick it up from the Mishnah tomorrow, from this third Mishnah on the Daf tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. On Thursday, it's a short day. We gotta finish Mekasiyim, so we want to get over that. Have a good day, everybody.
Good day. Take it. Beautiful.